The legend of Atlantis, a name that evokes images of a magnificent sunken city, originates from a single ancient source, the writings of the Greek philosopher Plato. Around the year 360 BC, his dialogues Timaeus and Critias gave the world its first and only primary description of this lost civilization. According to Plato's account, Atlantis was an immense island nation, larger than ancient Libya and Asia Minor combined, located in the Atlantic Ocean, just beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now know as the Strait of Gibraltar. It was founded not by mortals, but by Poseidon, the god of the sea. He fell in love with a mortal woman named Cleito, and to protect her, he broke the land into a series of concentric rings of earth and water. For generations, the descendants of Poseidon and Cleito ruled over a utopian society. The island was a marvel of natural wealth, providing everything its inhabitants needed. Precious metals, including the now legendary orichalcum, said to glow with a red light, were mined in abundance. The fertile plains yielded 2 harvests a year, and the island was home to a variety of animals, including elephants. The Atlanteans were brilliant architects and engineers. Their capital city was a wonder of the ancient world. Great canals, large enough for ships to pass through, connected the rings of water. A massive outer wall gleamed with a coating of bronze, a second with tin, and the wall of the inner citadel itself flashed with the red light of orichalcum. At the city's heart stood a magnificent temple dedicated to Poseidon, decorated with silver and gold, housing a giant golden statue of the god, driving a chariot pulled by winged horses. For ages, the Atlanteans were virtuous and noble, living by wise laws and valuing wisdom over wealth. But slowly, a change occurred. Plato writes that their divine nature began to weaken as they repeatedly interbred with mortals. With this dilution came moral decay. Greed, arrogance, and a lust for power consumed them. They assembled a vast army and navy, seeking to conquer all the lands of the Mediterranean. They successfully subjugated parts of Europe and Africa, until they were challenged by the city of Athens. It was this hubris that sealed their fate. Plato describes a divine punishment of terrifying finality. In a single dreadful day and night of violent earthquakes and floods, the island of Atlantis was swallowed by the sea, disappearing beneath the waves forever. The ocean became an impassable barrier of mud and shoal, where the great nation once stood. For over 2 millennia, Plato's account was largely viewed as a philosophical allegory, a cautionary tale about the corrupting influence of power and wealth and the ideal state versus a corrupt one. This perception shifted dramatically in the late 19th century, largely due to the work of American writer Ignatius Donnelly. In his 1882 book Atlantis, the Antediluvian World, he argued passionately that Plato's story was not myth, but literal history. Donnelly proposed that Atlantis was the first true civilization, the origin point from which all others, Egyptian, Mayan, Hindu, drew their knowledge. This idea ignited a global fascination, and the hunt for the lost city began in earnest. The most obvious search area has been the mid-Atlantic, directly where Plato said it was. Modern oceanography and seafloor mapping, however, have failed to reveal any evidence of a sunken continent. Plate tectonics show the seafloor is spreading there, not sinking. This lack of evidence has led researchers to look for terrestrial parallels, real historical events that could have inspired Plato's tale. The most widely accepted academic hypothesis centers on the Greek island of Thera, now known as Santorini. Around 1600 BC, Thera was home to the highly advanced Minoan civilization. A volcanic eruption of unimaginable force, one of the largest in human history, blew the island apart. It triggered massive tsunamis that would have devastated coastal communities across the Mediterranean. The collapse of the volcano's caldera into the sea would have looked like an entire island vanishing in a day. It is plausible that the memory of this cataclysm, passed down through generations of Egyptians and Greeks, could have reached Plato. Its details, like the timescale and location, distorted over 1,000 years. Other theories abound. Some point to ruins found off the coast of Spain near Cadiz, suggesting a city inundated by a tsunami. Others have looked to the Black Sea, arguing it was a freshwater lake that was catastrophically flooded by the Mediterranean around 5600 BC, wiping out advanced settlements along its shore. Ultimately, no structure, no inscription, no piece of orichalcum has ever been found to prove Atlantis was a real, physical place. Yet the story endures. It persists not because of hard evidence, but because of its powerful hold on the human imagination. Was it a distorted memory of the Minoan catastrophe? Or was it simply a master philosopher's invention to teach a moral lesson? The mystery remains, buried not just under the ocean, but under layers of time, myth, and interpretation. In the heart of modern-day Turkey, there is a landscape that seems born from a dream. The region of Cappadocia is a world of surreal rock formations sculpted by millennia of wind and water into twisting spires and conical pillars known as fairy chimneys. For centuries, travelers have marveled at this strange and beautiful surface world. But the greatest wonder of Cappadocia is not what rises from the ground, but what lies hidden deep within it. Beneath this fantasy landscape, a civilization, or perhaps a succession of them, accomplished an architectural feat in reverse. They did not build towards the sky. They carved a world into the darkness below, creating vast, multi-leveled subterranean cities, complete with everything needed to sustain life. The most astonishing of these is Derinkuyu. From the surface, its entrance is unassuming, easily mistaken for just another cave or well. But this modest opening is a gateway into a subterranean metropolis of staggering scale and complexity. Derinkuyu descends an incredible 18 stories into the earth, reaching a depth of nearly 280 feet. It is a honeycombed labyrinth of chambers and tunnels meticulously carved from the soft volcanic tuff rock, and it was large enough to provide refuge for up to 20,000 people, along with their livestock and months' worth of food supplies. This was not a simple network of caves. It was a fully functional, self-sufficient city, hidden from the world above. Exploring its depths is like journeying into another world. The narrow, sloping passageways open into chambers that served every conceivable purpose. There are distinct living quarters for families, vast communal rooms, and stables for animals on the upper levels to minimize odor. Deeper still, archaeologists have identified wineries with great presses, oil presses, and enormous storage rooms. There are even chapels with vaulted ceilings and a large cross-shaped church, a testament to later Christian inhabitants. Most remarkably, there is a sprawling room on the second level that is believed to have been a religious school, complete with study rooms. All of this was connected by a web of tunnels, a hidden world illuminated only by the flicker of oil lamps. The engineering genius of its builders is most evident in its defensive and life-sustaining features. How could 20,000 people survive an attack or a long siege? The answer lies in the city's ingenious security. The primary entrances and the passages between each level could be sealed from the inside by massive circular stone doors, like giant millstones weighing several tons. These doors rolled into perfectly carved slots in the wall, making them impossible to open from the outside. The tunnels themselves were often deliberately narrow and low, forcing any potential invader to stoop and proceed in single file, making them easy targets for defenders hiding in ambush nooks. And how did they breathe? The solution was a sophisticated ventilation system. A central shaft over 180 feet deep acted as the city's main lung, with thousands of smaller shafts branching off from it to supply fresh air to every corner of the vast complex, even its deepest levels. This system, along with access to an underground river for fresh water, meant the inhabitants could remain sealed in their hidden world for months at a time if necessary. But the greatest mystery of Derinkuyu is not how it worked, but who first conceived of it, and why. While we know that early Christians expanded these cities in the Byzantine era, using them as a refuge from Roman and later Arab persecution, all evidence suggests they were merely improving upon a much older, pre-existing network. Who were these original builders? Some historians point to the Phrygians, an Indo-European people from the 8th century BC. Others suggest it could be the even older Hittites from the time of the Trojan War. But with no definitive inscriptions left by the original creators, their identity remains lost to time. This leads to the ultimate question. What drove a civilization to undertake such a monumental effort to live underground? Was it purely for defense in a region that was a constant crossroads for invading armies? Or was it a brilliant adaptation to the extreme continental climate, offering cool shelter from the scorching summer heat and warmth from the freezing, snowy winters? The truth is likely a combination of all these things. Derinkuyu is a silent testament to a lost people whose solution to the challenges of their world was not to build walls around a city, but to make the earth itself their fortress, creating a hidden civilization that could endure, unseen, while empires rose and fell on the surface above. In the annals of the ancient world, there are stories of places that blur the line between history and myth. For centuries, one such place haunted the records of antiquity, a magnificent port city at the mouth of the Nile, a gateway to the land of the pharaohs. The Greek historian Herodotus wrote of it in the 5th century BC, describing a wealthy and strategic harbor where Helen of Troy and her lover Paris were said to have sought refuge before the Trojan War. He called this city Heracleion. Egyptian sources, however, spoke of a major customs port named Thonis. For millennia, scholars debated their existence. Were they two different cities? Or were they merely legends, phantom ports whose real locations had been irrevocably lost to time? The truth, it turned out, was more incredible than the legend. Thonis and Heracleion were one and the same, and for over 1,200 years, this vibrant metropolis lay in silent darkness, preserved in a watery grave beneath the Mediterranean Sea. Before the rise of Alexandria, Thonis-Heracleion was the supreme entry point into Egypt. All ships arriving from the Greek world had to dock here, their cargo registered and taxed at the city's grand temple. Imagine it in its prime, a bustling, cosmopolitan hub built on a series of adjacent sand and clay islands, interconnected by a web of canals. It was a Venice of the ancient world, its waterways filled with the traffic of merchant vessels, its wharves piled high with goods from across the known world, wine and olive oil from Greece, cedar from Lebanon, silver from the Near East. The air would have been thick with 100 different languages as sailors and traders bartered in the shadow of imposing temples and colossal statues. This was not just a commercial center, it was a paramount religious site. The city's heart was the great temple of Amun-Gereb, the supreme god of the Egyptians. It was here that the pharaohs, including Ptolemies, would come to legitimize their rule, performing sacred rites that affirmed their power over the two lands of Egypt. The rediscovery of this lost world began not with an ancient map, but with the patient, methodical application of modern technology. At the turn of the 21st century, French underwater archaeologist Franck Godillot and his team began an ambitious survey of Aboukir Bay. They were initially searching for Napoleon's lost fleet from the 1798 Battle of the Nile, using sophisticated side-scan sonar and nuclear magnetic resonance magnetometers to peer through the water and the thick layers of sediment. For years, the work was painstaking. But then their instruments began to reveal anomalies far too vast and complex to be a mere collection of shipwrecks. They saw the ghostly outlines of foundations, walls, and harbor structures. In the year 2000, when the first divers descended into the murky, low-visibility water, they were entering a lost world. Brushing away centuries of sand from a dark shape on the seafloor, a diver came face to face with a colossal stone head, its features serene and perfectly preserved. The ghost city had been found. What emerged from the depths was a civilization frozen at the moment of its collapse. The archaeological team began to map a city, spread over several square miles. They navigated through the ruins of the great temple of Amun-Gereb, its massive stone blocks toppled but not destroyed. Lying on the seabed like sleeping giants were incredible 16-foot-tall statues carved from red granite. They depicted a Ptolemaic king and queen and the powerful fertility god of the Nile, Hapi, their stone eyes staring into the perpetual twilight of the deep. They had once stood at the temple gates, greeting all who entered Egypt, and now they lay as silent sentinels of a forgotten kingdom. The divers uncovered a vast necropolis, a ship graveyard containing the beautifully preserved remains of over 70 ancient vessels. These were not ships lost in a battle, but intentionally sunk in the city's final years, perhaps to create a barrier, or in a desperate ritual. Among the most important discoveries were enormous stone slabs or stelae. One, an almost perfect copy of a stele found on land, was the city's Rosetta Stone. Inscribed in both Greek and ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, it definitively proved that the Greek Heracleion and the Egyptian Thonis were the same city. The text, decreed by Pharaoh Nectanebo I in 380 BC, laid out the taxes due to the temple from Greek trade, confirming the city's role as the nexus of international commerce. They found gold coins, bronze ritual vessels, delicate jewelry, and thousands of other small artifacts that painted an intimate picture of daily life and religious devotion. So how could such a formidable city simply vanish? Thonis-Heracleion was built on the geologically unstable silt and clay of the Nile Delta. The immense weight of its colossal temples and buildings, pressing down on waterlogged, unstable soil, made it vulnerable. Over centuries, a combination of factors sealed its doom: a gradual rise in sea level and a series of earthquakes that likely caused a phenomenon called soil liquefaction, where the solid ground essentially turns to liquid. In a final catastrophic event, likely in the 8th century AD, the central island of the city collapsed and the ground gave way. The magnificent buildings, the colossal statues, and the bustling canals all slipped beneath the waves, swallowed whole by the Mediterranean. The city was entombed in silt and sand, and its memory slowly faded into myth. The discovery of Thonis-Heracleion is a powerful reminder that history is not always lost, but sometimes merely submerged, waiting in the quiet darkness to be rediscovered and to tell its story once more. In the vast, shifting landscapes of the Arabian Peninsula, there is a desert so immense and forbidding that it is known as the Rub al-Khali, the empty quarter. It is a sea of sand, a place of profound silence and scorching heat, where entire cities can be swallowed without a trace. From this unforgiving landscape comes a legend that has haunted Arabian lore for millennia. The story of a magnificent, wicked city that was erased from the face of the earth. It is a tale spoken of in the Quran, woven into the fables of 1001 Nights and whispered by Bedouin travelers. It is the legend of Iram of the Pillars, the fabled Atlantis of the sands. According to the ancient stories, Iram was a city of unparalleled splendor and arrogance, built in a remote corner of the desert by the tribe of Ad, who were said to be descended from the prophet Noah. Their king, Shaddad, was a man of immense power and pride who wished to challenge the heavens themselves. He ordered the construction of a city that would be a facsimile of paradise on earth. For years his people toiled, building a city unlike any other. The legends describe Iram as a metropolis of towering, ornate pillars, its grand buildings constructed from gold and silver, their foundations studded with chrysolites and rubies. A river was diverted to flow beneath it, and its gardens were filled with fragrant fruit-bearing trees made of precious metals and jewels. Iram was a monument to human vanity, a breathtaking city built in defiance of God. When the city was finally complete, King Shaddad and his retinue rode out to behold their creation. But as they approached the gates of their earthly paradise, a terrible noise, a single, deafening shout, descended from the sky. The divine punishment for their hubris was swift and absolute. A furious, dark wind rose from the desert, a sandstorm of such cataclysmic power that it raged for 7 nights and 8 days. When the storm finally subsided, the city of Iram of the Pillars and all its inhabitants were gone, buried completely beneath the endless dunes, their location erased from the memory of man. It became a lost city, a cautionary tale told to warn against the dangers of pride and godlessness. For centuries, Iram was considered pure myth, a powerful religious allegory with no basis in reality. Its location was a mystery, its existence a matter of faith. But in the 20th century, a convergence of ancient knowledge and modern technology began to suggest that the legend might be rooted in a real historical place. A key figure in this search was T.E. Lawrence, better known as Lawrence of Arabia, who was fascinated by the legend and referred to Iram as the Atlantis of the sands. He searched for it, but the empty quarter guarded its secrets well. The breakthrough came in the 1980s. a team of amateur and professional archaeologists, led by Nicholas Clapp, decided to approach the problem from a new angle. They began by poring over ancient manuscripts and maps, charting the old frankincense trade routes that crisscrossed the Arabian Peninsula for thousands of years. Frankincense was a precious resin, as valuable as gold in the ancient world, and the cities that controlled its trade grew incredibly wealthy. The researchers theorized that a major city, the historical basis for Iram, must have existed as a central hub on this trade network. They then turned to the heavens for help. They obtained images from NASA's space shuttle, which was equipped with powerful ground-penetrating radar. This technology could see through the top layers of sand, revealing ancient, hidden features on the landscape. Combing through the images of southern Oman, they found what they were looking for: the faint, unmistakable tracks of ancient camel caravan routes, converging on a single point in the desert. At this convergence was the location of a well-known but poorly excavated archaeological site, a place called Ubar. In 1991, an archaeological team, following the ghostly tracks from space, began to dig at Ubar. What they found was astonishing. They uncovered the ruins of a large octagonal fortress with high walls and massive corner towers, the very pillars that the legends described. They found artifacts that indicated it had been an incredibly wealthy settlement, a trading hub that had prospered for thousands of years. The team had found a real city that matched the legendary descriptions of Iram. They also discovered the reason for its demise. The fortress of Ubar had been built directly over a vast, underground limestone cavern. The city's inhabitants had relied on a large well dug into this cavern for their water supply. Over centuries, the removal of water weakened the cavern's roof until it could no longer support the immense weight of the fortress above it. Sometime around 300 to 500 AD, the ground gave way and a large part of the city collapsed into a massive sinkhole. The event would have been sudden and catastrophic, a geological cataclysm easily interpreted by later generations as a divine, punishing sandstorm. The legend of Iram of the Pillars was not a myth after all, but a geological and historical memory, a story of a real city whose pride, in building a massive fortress on unstable ground, led directly to its spectacular downfall. In the lush green heartland of Sri Lanka, a colossal pillar of rock erupts from the flat jungle plain, dominating the landscape for miles in every direction. Standing 660 feet high, its sheer granite cliffs seem impenetrable, an ancient monolithic sentinel. This is Sigiriya, a place of breathtaking beauty and dark legend, for it was here, atop this formidable natural fortress, that a 5th century king built his royal palace in the sky, a celestial city complete with terraced gardens, sophisticated waterworks, and a gateway in the form of a gigantic lion. For a brief, dazzling period, this was the center of a kingdom, before being abandoned and lost to the jungle for over 1,000 years. The story of Sigiriya is a dramatic tale of family betrayal and royal paranoia. In the late 5th century, the throne of the Anuradhapura kingdom was seized by Prince Kashyapa, who had his own father, the king, walled up alive. His half-brother and rightful heir, Moggallana, fled to southern India, vowing to return with an army to claim his birthright. Consumed by fear of this inevitable retribution, Kashyapa abandoned the traditional capital and sought out the most defensible location in his kingdom, the great rock of Sigiriya. Here, he would build a fortress and palace so magnificent and impregnable that it would solidify his claim to godlike status and protect him from his brother's wrath. The transformation of this bare rock into a royal city was an engineering marvel, requiring the mobilization of the entire kingdom's resources. A team of master builders constructed a complex network of staircases and galleries that clung to the sheer rock face. Halfway up on a small plateau, they built the main gateway, which gave the fortress its name, Sinhagiri, the Lion Rock. Visitors would have to pass through the open jaws of a colossal, seated lion, sculpted from brick and plaster. Today, only the 2 gigantic clawed paws remain, but they give a sense of the intimidating scale of the original structure. It was a clear message to all who approached. This was the lair of a powerful and formidable king. The summit itself, a flat plateau covering nearly 4 acres, was transformed into the royal palace. While only the foundations remain today, they map out a complex of halls, chambers, and royal apartments. Most astonishingly, the engineers of this ancient civilization created a sophisticated system of cisterns carved directly into the rock, which collected rainwater and supplied the palace and its gardens with water. Surrounding the base of the rock, Kashyapa built an entire city laid out in a symmetrical planned grid. It featured some of the oldest landscaped gardens in the world, with terraced grounds, elegant water gardens filled with pools and fountains, and boulder gardens with pavilions perched atop giant rocks. One of Sigiriya's most beautiful and enigmatic features is found on a sheltered rock face on the western side of the rock, known as the Mirror Wall. Here, protected from the elements, are the world-famous Sigiriya frescoes. They depict dozens of ethereal, bare-chested women adorned with intricate jewelry and flowers. Who are these celestial maidens? Are they portraits of Kashyapa's queens and concubines, or are they celestial nymphs known as apsaras? Their serene, mysterious smiles have captivated viewers for centuries. The wall opposite the frescoes was coated in a highly polished plaster, so shiny that the king could supposedly see his own reflection as he walked past, with the images of the maidens appearing to float beside him. Kashyapa's sky palace, however, could not protect him from his fate. After 18 years, his brother Moggallana returned with an army. The final battle took place on the plains below Sigiriya. In a fatal tactical error, Kashyapa's war elephant became stuck in the mud. When he turned the elephant to extricate it, his own army misinterpreted the move as a retreat, panicked, and deserted him. Left alone, the usurper king took his own life on the battlefield. After his death, the most spectacular creation of this ancient civilization was abandoned. It was briefly used as a Buddhist monastery before being completely deserted and left to the jungle, its story fading into legend until its rediscovery by British archaeologists in the 19th century. Sigiriya remains a stunning monument to one man's ambition, artistry, and fear, a lost kingdom in the clouds. Deep within the humid jungles of modern-day Cambodia lies a spectacle of human devotion and engineering that almost defies belief: the city of Angkor. For over 600 years, this was the heart of the mighty Khmer Empire, a sprawling civilization that dominated Southeast Asia. Angkor was not merely a city of stone temples. It was the largest pre-industrial urban center in the world, a vast hydraulic metropolis of canals, reservoirs, and gridded city streets that supported nearly 1 million people. At its center stands Angkor Wat, the largest religious monument on the planet, a breathtaking stone microcosm of the Hindu universe. Yet by the 15th century, the pulse of this great city began to fade. Its grand avenues grew quiet, and its people drifted away, leaving their magnificent temples to be slowly strangled and consumed by the relentless jungle. The rise of the Khmer Empire began in the 9th century under its founder, Jayavarman II. He established a cult of the Devaraja, or God King, a belief that the monarch was a living incarnation of a Hindu deity, usually Shiva or Vishnu. This belief fueled one of the most ambitious building sprees in human history. Each successive king sought to outdo his predecessor, constructing ever more elaborate temple mountains as their personal monuments and gateways to the divine. The culmination of this ambition was Angkor Wat, built in the early 12th century by King Suryavarman II, aligned to the heavens with astonishing astronomical precision. Its 5 lotus bud towers represent the peaks of Mount Meru, the mythical home of the gods. Its walls are covered in nearly half a mile of exquisite bas-relief carvings depicting epic Hindu myths and glorious Khmer military victories. It was a city built for the gods, not for mortals. The true genius of Angkor, however, lay not just in its temples, but in its mastery of water. The Khmer kings constructed a colossal network of canals, moats, and massive reservoirs known as barrays. This intricate water management system was the lifeblood of the empire. It controlled the unpredictable monsoon rains, irrigating vast rice paddies that could yield up to 3 harvests a year, providing the immense food surplus needed to feed the armies of workers who built the temples. For centuries, this delicate balance between religious devotion and hydraulic engineering allowed the Khmer Empire to flourish, its power and wealth unparalleled in the region. So why did this seemingly invincible civilization collapse? The fall of Angkor was not a single event, but a slow, creeping decline, brought on by a perfect storm of converging factors. The empire was engaged in centuries of draining warfare with its neighbors, particularly the rising Siamese kingdom of Ayutthaya to the west. In 1431, an Ayutthayan invasion sacked the great city of Angkor, carrying away artisans, dancers, and scholars. While this was a devastating blow, many historians now believe it was not the killing stroke, but rather one symptom of a deeper decay. The empire's spiritual foundations were also shifting. The state religion slowly transitioned from Hinduism to the more egalitarian and less centralized Theravada Buddhism. The new faith did not demand the construction of colossal temple mountains for god-kings, and the immense ideological motivation that fueled Angkor's growth began to wane. The focus shifted from grand state projects to more personal, community-based worship. Perhaps the most critical factor, however, was the very system that gave Angkor its strength. In recent years, scientists using aerial laser scanning technology, or LiDAR, have been able to digitally peel back the jungle canopy, revealing the true, staggering extent of the urban sprawl. This research has also shown that in the 14th and 15th centuries, the region was struck by a period of intense climate change. Prolonged, severe droughts were followed by violent, torrential monsoons. The Khmer's magnificent water management system, designed for a stable climate, was pushed beyond its limits. The droughts would have crippled rice production, while the intense floods would have overwhelmed the canals, causing catastrophic damage to the network's infrastructure. The delicate balance had been broken. The system that had fed an empire was now failing it. Faced with a failing water system, relentless foreign attacks, and a changing spiritual landscape, the Khmer elite began a strategic withdrawal, moving their capital south, closer to the coast and new maritime trade routes. Angkor was never completely abandoned, but its grand urban infrastructure was left to decay. The jungle, which had been held at bay for centuries, began its slow, inexorable reclamation. Giant silk cotton and strangler fig trees grew over the temple walls, their powerful roots prying apart the massive stone blocks, merging nature and architecture into the hauntingly beautiful ruins we see today. The fall of Angkor is a powerful cautionary tale of a civilization that reached the zenith of human achievement, only to discover that even the grandest cities built for gods are ultimately at the mercy of the environment and the slow, inevitable tides of change. For generations, the story of human civilization followed a simple, logical progression. First, our ancestors learned to cultivate the land, mastering agriculture. This abundance allowed them to abandon their nomadic lives and form permanent settlements. From these towns and cities, with time to spare and populations to organize, complex religion and monumental architecture were born. The farm came first, then the village, and finally, the temple. For decades, this was the accepted timeline of our ascent, but resting beneath a gentle, rounded hill in southeastern Turkey, a discovery was made that would not just challenge this story, but shatter it completely. The local Kurdish people called the place Göbekli Tepe, the pot-bellied hill. For millennia, it held a secret that would rewrite the very first chapter of our history. For years, Göbekli Tepe was overlooked by archaeologists. The presence of a medieval cemetery on its slopes led most to dismiss the limestone slabs dotting the landscape as little more than broken headstones. But in 1994, a German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt visited the site. He had been working on a nearby Stone Age settlement and recognized the distinctive flint tools scattered around the hill. He looked at the massive rectangular blocks of limestone protruding from the earth and saw something others had missed. These were not random fragments. They were the tops of immense, deliberately shaped pillars. Schmidt knew instantly that he was standing on something monumental, a place whose true age and purpose were far beyond what anyone had imagined. He would spend the rest of his life uncovering it. What Schmidt and his team unearthed was nothing short of astonishing. As they dug into the pot-bellied hill, they revealed a series of vast, circular enclosures. At the center of these circles, stood pairs of enormous T-shaped pillars, some reaching over 18 feet tall and weighing up to 50 tons. These central pillars were themselves encircled by smaller, similar pillars, all facing inward as if in a silent, eternal meeting. And these were not crude, unworked stones. Their surfaces were covered in intricate, masterfully executed carvings of animals: sinuous snakes, snarling foxes, wild boars, scorpions, and long-necked birds like cranes and vultures. The pillars themselves are now believed to be highly stylized representations of human figures, with abstract arms carved along their sides and hands pointing towards their navels. They are silent, powerful beings, gathered in a sacred congregation. The sheer scale of Göbekli Tepe is staggering. Quarrying, transporting, and erecting these colossal pillars would have required a massive, coordinated workforce. But it is the age of the site that is truly mind-bending. Using radiocarbon dating, archaeologists determined that Göbekli Tepe was constructed around 9,500 BC. This text is to outdo the first bad thing from 11 Labs. That makes it 11,500 years old. It is more than 6,000 years older than Stonehenge, and 7,000 years older than the Great Pyramids of Giza. This was not built by an established urban society. It was conceived and constructed by people of the Stone Age, by hunter-gatherers. This single fact flips the entire story of civilization on its head. It suggests that the immense shared effort required to build a massive ceremonial center, a cathedral on a hill, may have been the very catalyst that spurred humanity to develop agriculture and permanent settlements, simply to feed and support the builders. The temple, it seems, may have come first. The site presents us with profound, almost unanswerable questions. What was this place for? The lack of domestic hearths or residential buildings indicates it was not a village. It was a place of ritual, a sacred mountain where different clans of hunter-gatherers could gather, feast, and connect with their cosmos. The animal carvings may represent spiritual guardians, tribal totems, or figures from a lost mythology. The vultures in particular have led some to believe it was a center for complex funeral rites, where the dead were left to be excarnated by the birds, their souls carried to the heavens. But the greatest mystery of Göbekli Tepe is not its construction, but its end. After more than 1,500 years of use, a period longer than the time that separates us from the fall of Rome, the creators of Göbekli Tepe did something extraordinary. They deliberately and painstakingly buried their own creation. They filled the sacred enclosures with millions of cubic feet of earth, rubble, and animal bones, entombing their temple under the very hill that would preserve it for the next 10,000 years. Why would a civilization bury its most sacred accomplishment? Perhaps the beliefs it represented were superseded by a new religion, and this was a ritual decommissioning. Perhaps it was a form of time capsule, an intentional act of preservation. Or perhaps the site had become a place of taboo, its power so great it needed to be sealed away from the world. We will likely never know. What is certain is that Göbekli Tepe represents a lost chapter of the human story, a testament to the fact that the drive to create, to worship, and to find meaning in the universe is an impulse more ancient and fundamental than we ever knew. Throughout history, humanity has built magnificent structures to honor its gods and kings. We have stacked stones, laid bricks, and raised timbers, building upwards towards the heavens. But in the western highlands of India, on a basalt cliff face in the state of Maharashtra, an ancient civilization rejected this fundamental rule. They did not build up, they carved down. Here at the site known as the Ellora Caves lies an architectural marvel so audacious and so defiant of logic that it seems to belong to the realm of myth. It is Cave 16, known as the Kailasa Temple, a vast multi-story temple complex that was not constructed, but excavated, liberated in its entirety from a single solid piece of mountain. The Ellora complex is a breathtaking testament to religious harmony, featuring 34 monasteries and temples belonging to Buddhism, Hinduism, and Jainism, carved side by side over centuries. But the Kailasa temple is its undisputed crown jewel. Commissioned in the 8th century by a king of the Rashtrakuta dynasty, it was designed to be a stone replica of Mount Kailash, the sacred Himalayan abode of the Hindu god Shiva. It is the single largest monolithic excavation in the world, a feat of artistry and engineering that almost surpasses comprehension. To create it, An army of workers stood at the top of a volcanic rock cliff and began to chisel downwards. Imagine the process. They did not build walls, they defined them by removing everything around them. They did not raise pillars, they revealed them by carving away tons of solid rock. For what was likely more than a century, generations of sculptors worked with nothing more than simple iron hammers, chisels, and picks. They painstakingly carved out 3 massive, deep trenches into the U-shaped hillside, liberating a colossal, central block of stone. This block then became their canvas. They carved it from the top down, shaping the highest point of the main tower, or shikara, first, before moving down to carve the intricate details of the levels below. Every column, every doorway, every statue of a god, every frieze of marching elephants that adorns the temple's base was part of that original single piece of rock. The scale of the undertaking is staggering. Archaeologists estimate that to create the Kailasa temple, between 200,000 and 400,000 tons of basalt rock had to be removed. Even with modern machinery, such a project would be a monumental challenge. To have achieved it with ancient tools is a testament to a level of planning, precision, and unwavering devotion that is difficult for the modern mind to grasp. There was no room for error. A single miscalculation, a single misplaced chisel strike on a major structural element could have compromised the entire design, a mistake that could not be undone. And yet the result is a perfectly proportioned, breathtakingly complex structure, complete with multiple shrines, courtyards, bridges connecting different sections, and life-sized stone elephants standing guard. The central mystery of the Kailasa temple is not why it was built. It was a profound act of religious faith, but how? How was the initial architectural plan conceived and communicated to thousands of laborers? How did they manage the logistics of removing hundreds of thousands of tons of rock from deep trenches with no heavy machinery? The sheer volume of work has led some to question the conventional timeline, suggesting it must have taken many centuries longer than believed. Others, unable to reconcile the feat with known historical capabilities, have proposed more speculative theories, from lost ancient technologies to otherworldly assistance. But perhaps the most profound mystery is found in the intent itself. In an age of grand construction, the creators of Kailasa chose the most difficult method imaginable. They chose to liberate a sacred space from the earth rather than impose one upon it. Standing in the courtyard and looking up at the temple, you are surrounded on 3 sides by the raw cliff face from which it was born. You are inside the mountain, yet outside the temple. It is a structure that is simultaneously a building and a sculpture, a triumph of negative space. It remains today as a silent, awe-inspiring monument, not just to a god in a distant heaven, but to the almost divine potential of human ingenuity and the unyielding power of faith. In the arid, sun-scorched coastal plains of southern Peru lies one of the most perplexing and monumental creations of the ancient world. It is not a city of stone, nor a temple to a god, nor a tomb for a king. It is a vast and silent art gallery, etched into the very fabric of the desert floor itself. Spread across nearly 200 square miles of desolate stony landscape are hundreds of immense geoglyphs known to the world as the Nazca lines. These are not just simple patterns, but colossal drawings of animals, plants, and strange geometric shapes, so enormous that their true forms can only be fully appreciated from high in the sky. For centuries they lay hidden in plain sight, their grand designs unrecognized by those who walked among them, their purpose a profound mystery that continues to confound us today. The lines were created by the Nazca culture, a civilization that flourished in this harsh environment between approximately 500 BC and 500 AD. They achieved this monumental feat with a deceptively simple and elegant technique. The desert floor of the Nazca Plateau is a unique canvas, composed of a dark, rust-colored gravel coated in iron oxide. By carefully removing this dark top layer of rock, they exposed the much lighter, sand-colored earth beneath. The stark contrast in color created the lines. It was a simple method, but one that required immense precision, planning, and a deep understanding of geometry and scale to execute so flawlessly. The region's extreme aridity, with almost no rainfall or wind, has acted as a perfect preservative, protecting these fragile creations for nearly 2 millennia. a silent gallery left open to the heavens. The figures themselves are a breathtaking menagerie, drawn from the Nazca world and its powerful imagination. There is a hummingbird, its long beak poised as if to drink nectar from an unseen flower, with a wingspan of over 300 feet. A nearby spider, rendered with perfect biological accuracy, measures 150 feet in length. Elsewhere, a condor with a massive wingspan of 440 feet seems to soar across the plateau. There are monkeys with curious spiraling tails, a lizard nearly 600 feet long, unfortunately bisected by the construction of the Pan-American Highway, fish, pelicans, and even a figure that has been dubbed the astronaut, a humanoid shape with large, round eyes that seems to be waving from a hillside. Interspersed with these biomorphic figures are hundreds of straight lines, some running perfectly parallel for miles, others forming vast geometric shapes like trapezoids, spirals, and triangles. These lines often cut directly across the animal figures, suggesting they were made at different times, by different groups, for different, evolving reasons. The central haunting question is, why? Why would a culture invest such a colossal amount of time and coordinated effort into creating intricate artworks that they themselves could never fully see from the ground? This question has given rise to a constellation of theories, from the scientific to the deeply speculative. In the mid-20th century, the German mathematician Maria Reiche, who dedicated her life to studying and preserving the lines, famously proposed that they formed a massive astronomical calendar. She suggested the lines aligned with the rising and setting of the sun, moon, and specific stars during important times of the year, like the solstices, helping the Nazca people mark the changing seasons for their agriculture. While some astronomical alignments had been found, they do not account for the vast majority of the figures or lines, leaving the theory incomplete. Another prominent theory connects the lines to water, the most precious and life-giving resource in this arid land. Some researchers believe the lines may have served as ritual pathways, or sekis, where the Nazca people would walk in ceremonial processions to petition their mountain and sky gods for rain. The animal figures, many of which are associated with water or fertility in Andean cosmology, may have been offerings to these deities. The straight lines in this view could point towards sources of water, like underground aquifers, or the distant mountain peaks where rain clouds gather. They were, in essence, a form of sacred cartography, a map of prayers and pleas etched onto the landscape. Of course, the sheer scale and mystery of the Nazca lines have also attracted more outlandish theories. Most famously, they have been linked to ancient astronauts, proposed as giant runways or landing strips for alien spacecraft, with the figures serving as navigational beacons for extraterrestrial visitors. While this idea has captured the public imagination, it finds no support in the archaeological record. The Nazca lines were made by human hands for a human purpose. The tragedy is that the Nazca people left behind no written language, no texts to explain their intentions. Their motivations are lost to us, encoded in a silent language of symbols on the desert floor. They are a profound and humbling message from the past, a testament to a civilization's deep connection to its landscape and its cosmos, a message meant not for us on the ground, but for the silent, watching eyes of their gods in the sky. In the sweltering tropical lowlands of south-central Mexico, where dense jungle meets swampy plains, lie the remnants of Mesoamerica's first great civilization. They rose from the humidity around 1600 BC, long before the famous Maya or the mighty Aztecs, and for this reason they are known as the Cultura Madre, the mother culture. We do not know what they called themselves. The name we use, the Olmec, was given to them by the Aztecs centuries after their mysterious disappearance. They left behind no written histories we can fully decipher, but they did leave behind an undeniable testament to their power and artistry. 17 colossal stone heads staring out from the past with an unnerving, silent authority. These are not generic idols or stylized gods. Each of the 17 heads, carved from single massive boulders of volcanic basalt, is a distinct and powerful portrait. They depict mature men with full cheeks, flat noses, and slightly crossed eyes, features still common among the region's inhabitants today. Each face is unique, suggesting they are portraits of individual, powerful Olmec rulers. They wear intricate helmet-like headgear, each decorated with different symbols, perhaps indicating a name, a lineage, or a specific achievement. Ranging from 5 to 11 feet tall and weighing anywhere from 6 to an astounding 50 tons, these heads are a declaration of power. Monuments designed to awe and intimidate. The artistry is breathtaking, but the engineering and logistics behind their creation present one of Mesoamerica's most profound mysteries. The volcanic basalt used to carve the heads is not native to the Olmec heartland, where they were discovered. It was quarried in the Tuxtla Mountains, nearly 100 miles away. This means that the Olmec, a civilization with no beasts of burden like oxen or horses, no knowledge of the wheel for transport, and no metal tools harder than stone, somehow managed to quarry these multi-ton blocks, transport them across rivers, through dense jungles, and over swampy terrain, and then carve them with incredible precision and detail. The monumental effort required is almost impossible to comprehend. Scholars theorize that the massive boulders were likely moved on large balsa wood rafts during the wet season, when floodwaters would have made the lowlands more navigable. On land, they would have been painstakingly dragged and rolled on log rollers by immense teams of laborers. The journey would have taken months, perhaps even years, a massive undertaking requiring immense social organization, resources, and an unwavering commitment to honoring their leader. Once at their destination, sculptors would set to work with stone hammers and chisels, slowly pecking and grinding away at the hard volcanic rock to reveal the face within. Even more mysterious is the fate of many of these heads. Several were found deliberately buried, sometimes in groups. Others show signs of intentional mutilation before their burial. Were these acts of desecration by a conquering enemy, or was it a form of ritual killing of the monument upon the death of the ruler it represented, a way to release his soul or decommission his power? In some cases, the Olmec even appear to have carved new heads from older, broken monuments, recycling the sacred stone of a previous ruler into the image of a new one. And then, around 400 BC, after more than 1,000 years of cultural dominance, the Olmec civilization collapsed. Their major centers, like San Lorenzo and La Venta, were abandoned and their traditions faded. The great stone heads were left to be slowly consumed by the jungle floor, their stories forgotten. We are left with the silent, powerful faces of these lost kings. They are the tangible link to a civilization whose influence would echo through all subsequent Mesoamerican cultures, yet whose own voice remains almost completely silent. The Olmec heads are a profound statement of human identity and power, a puzzle of logistics and belief, and the last stoic guardians of a world that vanished back into the jungle mists. For more than 2 millennia, the farmers in the Lintong district of Xi'an, China, worked the earth, drawing their water from wells and their livelihood from the soil. They knew their land held old pottery shards and bits of ancient tile, but they had no idea that just beneath their feet lay one of the most astonishing wonders of the ancient world, an entire army, frozen in time, waiting in silent subterranean ranks to guard their long-dead emperor for all eternity. This is the story of the Terracotta army, a discovery that revealed not just a tomb, but a lost world of imperial ambition, and a testament to the man who first united and then sought to conquer the afterlife itself. The story begins in 1974. A group of local farmers suffering from a drought decided to dig a new well. As they dug, their shovel struck something hard. It was not a rock, but the head and shoulders of a life-sized man, exquisitely crafted from baked earth or terracotta. The figure was a soldier, poised for battle. The farmers had unknowingly broken into the edge of a massive underground vault. Chinese archaeologists were called to the site, and what they began to uncover would stun the world. This single soldier was merely one of thousands, arranged in perfect battle formation within a series of immense, carefully constructed pits. They had found the afterlife guard of Qin Shi Huang, the fearsome and brilliant first emperor of China. In 221 BC, he had conquered all rival states, unifying China for the first time. He was a ruler of immense vision and ruthless ambition, responsible for standardizing currency, writing and measurements, and for connecting the fortifications that would become the Great Wall. But his greatest project was arguably his own tomb. The ancient historian Sima Qian wrote, that upon ascending the throne, the emperor immediately began war on his necropolis, a project that would involve over 700,000 conscripted laborers and craftsmen. What they created is a wonder of both art and logistics. To date, archaeologists have excavated 3 main pits, revealing an army estimated to contain over 8,000 soldiers, 130 chariots pulled by more than 500 horses, and 150 cavalry horses. Each warrior is life-sized and painstakingly detailed. While their bodies were mass-produced from molds, every single head is unique. The faces are individual portraits, depicting men of various ages and from different regions of the new empire. There are archers, infantrymen, officers and high-ranking generals, each distinguished by their armor, their hairstyles, and their determined expressions. They were originally painted in brilliant, lifelike colors, pinks, reds, greens, and purples, which tragically began to flake and fade within minutes of being exposed to the air after 2,200 years in the dark. The army was a microcosm of Qin Shi Huang's real-world military machine, arranged in precise tactical formations, ready to defend their emperor from any threat in the spirit world. They were armed with real state-of-the-art bronze weapons. Archaeologists have found over 40,000 weapons, including spears, halberds, swords, and powerful crossbows. Thanks to a protective chromium plating, a technology not thought to be invented until the 20th century, many of the blades were found to be still razor-sharp. And yet, the most staggering realization is that this incredible terracotta army is merely the beginning. It is just one component of a vast, 56-square-kilometer spirit city built for the emperor. The army faces east, guarding the approach to the true prize, which lies about a mile away, the tomb of Qin Shi Huang himself. It remains sealed beneath a massive, man-made earthen mound that rises like a small mountain from the plain. It has never been excavated. Our only guide to what lies within comes from the ancient texts of Sima Qian. He wrote that the tomb contains a replica of the emperor's entire domain, with palaces, towers, and halls. He described a map of China with its great rivers and seas recreated in flowing liquid mercury. The ceiling is said to be a map of the heavens, studded with pearls and gems to represent the sun, moon, and stars. And most chillingly, he wrote that the tomb is protected by deadly automated crossbows, designed to fire on anyone who dares to enter. Modern scientific surveys have supported parts of this incredible account, detecting abnormally high concentrations of mercury in the soil of the mound, suggesting the liquid rivers may actually exist. For now, out of respect for the site and due to concerns that modern technology is not yet advanced enough to preserve whatever treasures lie within, the tomb of the first emperor remains sealed. The terracotta army stands its silent, eternal guard, a testament to one man's quest for immortality. They are the guardians of China's greatest archaeological mystery, a lost world waiting to be fully revealed, and a powerful reminder that sometimes the most incredible discoveries are only the prelude to an even greater secret. And that brings us to the end of our journey. From the jungles of Angkor Wat to the sands of Iram, from the incredible rock-cut temple of Kailasa to the mysterious Olmec heads, we've seen some truly remarkable lost civilizations. It's humbling to think about the sheer scale of what these ancient people accomplished with the tools they had and the profound mysteries they left behind for us to ponder. I sincerely hope you found this tour both relaxing and fascinating. Creating these deep dives into history's forgotten corners is a passion, and if you enjoyed spending your time here and feel the same way, then I would be honored to have you along for future explorations. If you'd like to support the channel, the best way to do so is by subscribing. It lets me know you're interested and helps ensure you won't miss what's next. Of course, leaving a like and a comment is also incredibly helpful and always appreciated. I'd love to hear which of these civilizations intrigued you the most. Thank you again so much for watching. Until we venture out again to uncover another lost story,